Guys, happy Monday and welcome to the Bird Brain Podcast, where the goal is to rise above it all, stay elevated, create that infinity, and up your you. I'm your host, Isaiah, and today, I had a listener ask if I've ever done an episode on letting go, because they were like physically and I guess emotionally going through that process. And I was like, you know what? I feel like I've had to, but the thing about letting go is it doesn't just happen once and you're done. It happens continually. And sometimes it's the same situation that you're having to re-let go of, or you thought you let it go and it just creeps back up. So I was like, we could do another episode on letting go 2.0. So yeah, we're going to talk about that today. You know, what letting go looks like, what it feels like, some intricacies within letting go that may help you a little bit, because there were a few things I was letting go of last week and the week prior. Just been like shedding, if you will. And there's some cool things I came up with that I want to share with you guys. And I hope that it helps you too. And if you like what you're listening to, head on over to iTunes, subscribe, comment, leave a rating, leave a review. That helps a ton. It may seem like it's not a big deal, but trust me, it is. So if you guys do that, it's more than appreciated. It helps this podcast out in a big way. If you want to stay up to date with the podcast, head on over to the Bird Brain Podcast, or you could check out the YouTube channel. And you can email at thebirdbrainpodcast@gmail.com. And yeah, we could chat. It's really cool to hear from you guys. So yeah, thank you for sending out some words. And I think that's enough homework. The limited edition t-shirts, they're here for another week and then they're gone. So head on over to the link. The link is in the bio. Get yours. I'm celebrating a 3-year anniversary for this podcast. This is a big deal. And the design is by me. So all the merch that you see on the podcast, all the designs are done by yours truly. So it's a little bit more personal, guys. Yeah, and I like it that way. So, yeah, without further ado, if you are home, grab some water, chill out, get comfortable. If you're driving, put on your damn seatbelt and just let's go along for a ride. All right, stay tuned. You beautiful people, what's up? Happy Monday. How's your heart? How's your headspace? How's things been in the practical world for you? Like, where are you right now? I know, I think when I first started out this podcast, I forget where I heard it, or I just took it up. And, you know, sometimes it's better to ask people, how's your heart? Because it kind of forces them to think. You know, one time I asked somebody how their heart was, and they were like, huh? I was like, how's your heart? They're like, fine, I guess. The doctors didn't say. I was like, no. How are you emotionally? What's going on in there? And they were like, oh. And then, you know, they gave a little bit more of a detailed response or a specific response. So get in the habit. Sometimes, like, people you're cool with or close to, instead of asking, hey, how are you doing? Because they'll probably say good. Be like, hey, how's your heart? And they'll probably think about it and actually give you a more sincere, non-political response, which is what we want, right? We want honest connection. So speaking of honest connection, let's talk about honest disconnection. So I had a listener ask me, and it was like, hey, have you ever done an episode about letting go? And I think I did an episode a few months back, possibly about like expectations or something like that, or change. and letting go of expectations and what that all looks like. That's one thing. And then it was funny enough that they asked when they did, because I was like in the headspace, or I have been in the headspace of letting go of a lot of things, and not so much people at this point, because I feel pretty good about that. Like I'm grateful that I'm not going through this kind of like vetting process, so to speak, when it comes to like my relationships, because that sucks. Is not a fun thing to do. I know cut culture is a thing and cancel culture is a thing. I don't like the idea of like having to remove people from my life. And some people are like, well, don't. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. It's, I think for me, relationships are not busy work in my life. Like, they are intentionally placed there. Like, where I go is where I want to grow. You see what I'm saying? And where I go is also where I intend to plant seeds and take care of that garden as well. So my relationships are very important, and I hold them to a very high regard. So whenever I'm in a situation where I do have to let go of relationships, it's not fun. It's not fun. And I don't think it's fun for anybody. And I even think people who are like, who talk about cutting off and all that, because I used to kind of have that mindset, and I knew where it came from. It was this thing of like disconnecting the painful process of what's going on. It's like an immediate kind of like cut to the source, if you will. And I'm not saying it's good. Actually, I didn't like that. And I still don't. Like, I don't like the idea of like bragging about, cutting people off and all that stuff. And I'm like, it sucks, because usually, again, the people that are doing it, they've been through some shit. And sometimes, the quickest way to a resolve is to just be rid of the thing. And yeah, it's kind of like amputation is like you just cut it. You know what I'm saying? You cut off the infection and you deal with the kind of ramifications, but you get rid of that thing. And sometimes it leaves a scar, right? But you did what you had to do. And like I said, I usually do my best to not do that so frequently. And like I said, I don't have intentionally, and I've never really cared to have like a wide net of just, I guess, friends and just people in my life in general. It makes things a little bit more, in my opinion, sometimes more complicated, a little bit more convoluted. You're dealing with a lot more dynamics, and I know for me, it's like my capacity to care about other people is grand, and it's like, but there's not, how do I say it? Is not enough to go around evenly. So therefore, the people that I have in my life is like, I want to make sure I'm pouring into you like properly. You know what I'm saying? So intention. And so this leads to letting go. Like, what does that look like? And truth be told, there were a couple of people this year I did have to let go of, and the grounding of it, or the reason for it, was like just not feeling I don't want to say safe, but like feeling like you could trust the relationship. It just felt like there was a lot of deception around it. And when you have that, it's like, okay, it's one thing to have kind of like just a disagreement with someone, and it's like you guys kind of do your best to obviously respect each other and find a common ground, and you come back to center, right? it's another thing, and this is the thing that people don't realize when I hear a lot of times when people talk about forgiveness and all that stuff, is like, it's a different. Betrayal is not a an accident. Like, betrayal and deceit and distrust and doing things to compromise somebody's sense of peace and well-being and their trust. To me, that's not a Band-Aid. That's not a Band-Aid occurrence. Excuse me. That's a little deeper. That's a deeper wound. And forgiveness and allowing somebody back into your life who you can't be sure of or you can't trust, I think that's an honest disservice. Sometimes you do have to love people from afar. And some people don't agree with that. And I'm like, that's your business, because that's how I feel. And that works for my life. Like, the idea of being in the company of someone that I can't trust myself to be like safe with or valued, there's no point in a relationship. Actually, it's not a relationship. So, that whole forgiving everybody is lost on me. He's like, yeah, I can forgive you, but that doesn't mean access. Forgiveness is not access. And even in those relationships, letting go sometimes it's kind of complicated, because you care about the person, you cared about the situation, and you're like, damn, but why do I still feel bad about it? Why do I have a hard time, quote unquote, letting go? And that's when it gets to, I'd say that's when it comes down to looking at, it all comes back to self, right? Our relationships reflect something within us, good, bad, indifferent. Our endurance in a relationship reflects something in us. Our tolerance of a lot of things reflects something back to us. So when we do walk away from a toxic relationship and we still feel like we did something wrong, that's information, because yes, you care about the person, but it's like, wait, why do I feel bad? And why am I kind of sympathizing with someone who didn't treat me well? And like, yes, everybody has history, everybody has trauma, but that doesn't mean that you're supposed to be the placeholder while they figure it out. Understanding does not equate to undergoing. I can understand your experiences. I can have awareness in terms of like your history, your trauma, but that does not mean I stick by and I take all these hits. And in consequence, I'm being compromised because this person is not necessarily showing up to treat me well. So I have to let go. And letting go in that process feels weird, because it's like, but damn, I care. So a couple of things I thought about, because like I said, I was letting go of a few things in people, like in my head, or just like letting go of the relationship and what it looked like. It came down to this. First, I think it's important to let go of certain ideals that you have of yourself, because that might make it easier to let go of somebody else. If you let go of the expectations placed on you to be a certain thing or a certain person, you might have an easier time. And what I mean is, like, sometimes we have this ideal that everybody has to like us. We have to, we always have to be present and fit the mold of every person that we have an exchange with. And if they don't like us, then we failed. No. Getting comfortable with not being liked is going to probably help you a lot, because not everybody's going to like you. And the truth of the matter is, if you're having a hard time letting go of a certain relationship, that person may have, quote unquote, loved you, but they weren't very kind to you, which shows that they didn't really like you no matter what you did. Right? So, and also too, doesn't matter how good you are to some people will still paint you as a bad person, so they don't feel bad for how they treated you. So everybody can't like you. Not everybody's going to like you. You have to be okay with that. Some people are committed to misunderstanding you because it allows them to justify their own behavior, right? Once you let go of the need to be liked, to be loved, and to be valued, and to be accepted by every person you come across, it might help you to see people for who they are and let it go. And also, too, letting go of what you had hoped to see and holding on to what you're shown. Like if I'm in an experience, right? If I have an experience and I play it back in my head, I'm like, all right, Isaiah, so what happened? I'm like, okay, so this happened objectively. This took place, this was said, this was done. And that's the information I go off of. And I'm like, okay, this is what I was shown. All right. And instead of me trying to do all this guesswork or putting the puzzle pieces together or being like, oh, well, what about the order? What was I shown? What did this person continuously show me? Right? So I let go of my expectation of what I hoped it to be because I was like, damn, I cared. This was important. I feel disappointed, yada, yada. And it's like, hold on. Were you disappointed by your own expectations, though, instead of what this person or who this person is? And the only way you can do that sometimes is letting go of certain expectations or ideals that were placed on you. Start there. Let go of having to be liked by everybody. Because truly, that probably keeps you in more toxic situations than you may think. Because if you're used to an imbalance in relationships, you stick around to kind of prove, like you try to win over somebody who's not treating you well. So in your head, you think that if you win this person over, it'll validate some underlying trauma. It'll be the fix to that whole chasing love, affection, value, all those things. And not everybody likes when you take care of yourself, right? And sometimes you feel guilty, like, oh, I probably shouldn't have, walked away, or, what if they needed me, or I don't want to. On my TikTok video, I heard a few people say, I don't like giving up on people. It's like, you don't like giving up on people, but you're giving up on yourself. And where's the reward in that? What's the you don't get an award. Like you telling me you don't like giving up on people who don't treat you well. It's not giving up. It's you being wise and you wising up to what's going on. You're not being taken care of. So there's no honor in saying, oh yeah, I have a hard time giving up on, or I don't like giving up on people. It's like you gave up on yourself. You give up on yourself. You're not standing up for yourself. You're not taking care of yourself. You want so much to be valued by somebody who's already showing you continuously that they don't value you. Sometimes we really have to let go of this idea that we have to be liked by every person we come across. Because truth of the matter is, we don't necessarily vibe with every person we come across. So why would it be on the other foot? Like, why would now we be the person that everybody dislikes? You can't have that. And it's probably better because it will allow you to be a little bit more intentional. And also, too, it'll probably keep other people at bay. So be okay with not being liked. As long as you like and love yourself and you value yourself, the other people are a bonus. And I know that's easier said than done, but the truth of the matter is when you really break it down, be okay with being liked and be okay with not being thought about, because a lot of times the same people you're hoping to like you, they don't think much about you on any given day. People are usually caught up in their own stuff until sometimes their relationships are like a buffer. They kind of like check in when there's a need for them to check in and kind of decompress almost. It's not necessarily to take care of you, it's to take care of what they need within themselves. So this is what I was thinking about. I mean, going through things and like I said, being in solitude, it forces you to just like look at things. It's like, okay, how are you getting through your days? Who's checking your pulse? How are you being taken care of? Who are you checking on? You kind of put all these things out in the open and you write it down. Sometimes you literally have to write it down. And you kind of see in terms of priorities what they look like, what your priorities are, where are you on a priority list for someone else. And you let go of, you just let go of your ideal situation and you focus on the real of the situation, right? Because sometimes too, I talked about this on my Instagram the other day. I was like, a lot of times we talk about a loss of a relationship, a loss of a friendship, whatever. And I'm like, what if it's just a mislabel? What if you mislabeled someone? You held them in a position that they shouldn't have been in, because you don't lose. Like, I don't lose friends if they were never a friend to begin with. It was just me hoping that they would be a friend to me. And they weren't. They never were. So therefore, I didn't lose a friend. I mislabeled somebody. And that helps a little bit, because now I'm like, oh, okay. So I was upset by my expectations because this person was probably very consistent. I was upset by what I thought things should be versus what they were. And I'm not saying certain things aren't going to hurt or certain things aren't going to affect you, but you have to ask yourself, am I holding on to an ideal? Am I holding on to what I had hoped things should have been versus what they were? Because if you look at and you say out loud sometimes what was happening in a relationship exchange, it doesn't make sense why you'd be upset, right? And truthfully, sometimes the love that we offer into a relationship, and the love we feel that we quote unquote lost, it's just really us. Like, we make relationships important in our lives because of the level of love we pour into, the dedication, the consistency, how we keep showing up and why we show up. That's all you. That's all you. So if you weren't receiving the love that you needed, then it was no love lost, right? It wasn't any love lost. And this could apply to family too. It was no love lost because you were the one that was giving the love. You know what I'm saying? You were essentially in a relationship with yourself. And sometimes the good we see in others is the good we are putting into them, right? My mom said, stop expecting you from people. And that started to make a lot more sense. Whenever I think usually a good indicator sometimes in a weird way is like, sometimes you got to go through some things, like really heavy moments. And that in a weird way gives you clarity, because your support system becomes, oddly enough, a lot smaller. And the people you hope to be there weren't really there. And yes, everybody has things going on. But again, you are a person too. You have your stuff going on. But you still make it a point to show up probably, right? Some people don't let other things get in the way of how they prioritize others. But everybody else has different priorities. And again, sometimes you are not somebody's priority, and you have to be okay with that. But once you realize that, what's the work that you're doing? And just because somebody doesn't prioritize you does not mean you're not valued. They just have a different scale in terms of what they value and when. So letting go involves you letting go of certain things within yourself. For starters, and the most important, is letting go of being liked by everybody. Thinking that everybody's going to love you the same way you love them. It's not going to happen. It's really not. And like I said, you could be as kind, as loving, as thoughtful, as compassionate as sincere, as consistent as you want to be, that's still not necessarily going to make somebody like you. You know, sometimes people like how you love them. Doesn't mean they're going to love you back. Okay? But it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. And look at, like, am I trying to prove myself in this relationship? Am I seeking to correct a lack of love that I didn't receive? If I win this person over, am I subconsciously thinking that I have to win this person over so it could right the wrongs of the past? Because that's also a thing sometimes too that we unknowingly don't realize. And when a relationship doesn't work out, we feel like we failed or we're a failure, and that's not it. That is not it by a long shot. So just think about that. I challenge you to think about what letting go really looks like. And you do it in steps. Like I said, you do it in steps. It's not going to happen right away. Letting go involves you first letting go of some things within yourself, letting go of ideals, letting go of expectations. Keep your standards, but really work through what those standards are and if they are expectations. And just taking a good look around, you know, the people that you want to like you or the people that you hope to like you, what do they look like? How do they treat you? Look at your friendships, you know, the relationships that you're pouring into. Like, how are you treated on the receiving end? What does that look like to you? What does it feel like? Do you feel valued? Or do you feel like you're having to just not give up on other people because you don't want to be seen as a bad person? Sometimes people will make you the villain anyway in their story because they don't want to feel guilty about how they treated you. And sometimes you have to be okay with that. Be okay with not being liked. And I think once you let go of having to be liked by everybody, you'll be able to let go of people a little bit more easier because you'll see them for what they are versus what you hoped, what you needed them to be for you. We're all just out here living. All right. So I hope that helped. And if you guys have questions, just hit me up, thebirdbrainpodcast@gmail.com. But yeah, that's what I was thinking about. I mean, like I said, being sick, going through some things, it really kind of forces you to just take a good look around and really evaluate things, you know, and focus on where your energy is going and focus just on where people are, you know, in those moments of like need, and not holding on so tightly to a lot of things, especially who you need to be for others versus who you're being for yourself. Don't worry about being liked by everybody. You shouldn't want to be liked by everybody. Being valued, yeah, but you're always going to be invaluable. Remember that. Somebody not seeing your value doesn't mean that you're not of value. Feel me? So carry that with you this week. If you're having trouble in a relationship of some kind, letting go, just look at it. Am I holding on to expectations versus what this person actually shown me? All right. That's it, and that's all. I love you guys. I hope you have an amazing weekend and I hope you have an amazing week. And just find ways to take care of yourself in the little ways and just always bring it back to self. What am I doing right now? How do I feel? What do I value? What do my relationships look like? Am I valued? Do I feel valued? That's it. All right. So, yes, take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. And, of course, take flight. Love you guys. Later.